Well, meeting her with more masculine is probably going to only make things worse.
Yeah.
This is the time for me to be compassionate. Go to her, hold her, calm her down, bring her peace in that moment. You see? Because we need to balance each other out. Same thing on the flip side. If I'm all heated and I'm extra passionate, and then my woman now comes with that same energy, that's it. Now we're butting heads. This is her moment to say, no, let me now be the one to soften the moment up, bring that sweetness in there, and everybody calms down. So it's learning how to feed off of each other and recognize, okay, they're over here, let me bring it back over here. And now we can work from that point and we're both good.
The problem is that we all see compassion and sweetness and kindness in those moments as a weakness. We don't want to be that person because we see that as losing. We see that as giving in. We see that as us losing our power and strength in a relationship if we become the comforter or if we become the carer, right? Like that's a perception.
That is the perception.
Yeah.
And we have to change that. That is the power position. So who is more powerful? The person that lets the energy dictate them how they're going to react, or the person that brings the energy and dictates how they're going to make this situation play out? So if I'm coming in to calm it down and being all sweet because I'm trying to bring peace here, I'm in the power position. I'm not losing anything. I'm going to gain more peace and happiness and harmony if I succeed in what I'm trying to do. So we have to get out of that mindset of this makes us weaker. And that is the big key of it. That's a big problem. That for a lot of women who struggle with their feminine energy, that's a big issue where they feel that being feminine is weakness. It's what got them taken advantage of and got them hurt. But I always say it's not the feminine energy that's the problem. It's who you give it to. Do they respect it? Do they honor it? You know, and it's the same thing as a man. Does she respect your masculine? If she doesn't, then that might just be a sign you're with the wrong person. But don't stop being that guy, because the woman who's best for you is going to need that in those moments.
But that's exactly what it is that when people have been their best selves for the wrong person, that person brings out the worst in them.
Yes.
Right? Like when someone's been their best, loving, kindest self, but someone took advantage of it, that person now thinks next time I've got to be aggressive, I've got to be, powerful, I've got to be strong in this way. And I feel like that's kind of what most people are dealing with. We know that is that you're just dealing with a wounded version of someone,
Yes,
not a healed version of someone.
I feel like verbal communication of deep issues and concerns, they typically don't go well. People get distracted. They forget what they want to say. The other person gets defensive. They're listening to rebuttal, not to understand. But when there's a letter involved, it gives you time to get everything out. You can evaluate your tone, leave no stone unturned. And now they have an opportunity to process it on their time, to really take it in. And then you guys can come together and discuss the letter. And now it's so much easier to stay on point and get everything covered. If we've done that and they're still unwilling or there's still no progress, it's time to go.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. And for me, that's the biggest one. It's like, you can't make something last if only one person's working on it. You can't keep hoping and waiting and wishing. And like you said, that ending doesn't mean forever. And often I've found that two people need to grow individually to be able to grow collectively. And we're forcing growing together so hard, but we need space to grow. And if you can't grow together, chances are you need to grow apart in order to see whether you grow together again or grow for someone else.
And I think that a lot of people, and yet relationships arguably are even more important than that career or business. And even if it's not a romantic relationship, just relationships in general, your ability to coexist with others, connect with others is extremely important. If you want that business to succeed, you have to learn how to establish business relationships. There's no way around it. So we have to learn how to talk to people, listen to people, you know what I'm saying? And just make things work when we come together with other individuals. So I definitely think that we're just lacking in a lot of education because there's so many voices on the internet now. There's just so much bad advice being given. And the individuals giving it, they may be giving, like, let's say 80% of the advice is accurate, but it's that 20% that's completely off that can derail everything. And that's the stuff that people are gravitating to, and it's just causing a lot of problems.
Can you give us some example of some of the, like, not specific people or anything like that? I just mean, like, could you give an example of bad advice and what about it is bad or unhealthy for people to try and put into practice?
Okay, so one thing I heard recently was an individual said some of the best advice you can give to men is to not fall in love. You know, basically just find a woman you want to be with and kind of keep it there. The reason why I view that as horrible advice is because you sit down with any man who's lived enough life, they will all be able to say there's been at least one time they fell deeply for a woman, all right? The problem isn't falling deeply for a woman. The problem is we don't know how to handle it once we get there. The problem is because we're not accustomed to handling and processing our emotions a certain kind of way and being this vulnerable, we don't understand what's going to be required of us in that moment. We also kind of lose sight of, because I'm a big believer in masculine and feminine energy, and I believe that if she was attracted to you because of that masculine energy that you give off, and now you become this emotional wreck because you don't know how to handle all these feelings you have for her, well, you start to become less attractive to her. And it's not that it's not fixable. It's fixable, but again, a lack of understanding and awareness derails the situation.
It's almost like if you cut yourself, you now walk around with your hand over that cut because you don't want to get cut again.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you lead it off and it gets cut even deeper, now you're even more conscious of that. And so I find that people are doing that where they're closing their heart more and more because it's been so misused and abused. And I understand that. I understand people don't want to be abused and misused, but I guess the question is, how do people find people that they know respect them so that they can be their best version or be a better version of themselves?
So, you know, you can't drive out darkness with more darkness. You can't expose someone who's going to hurt you by being someone who's closed off and holding back yourself. It's kind of what we were just talking about. We have to look at being vulnerable, loving, and open as not just, well, I'm setting myself up to be hurt. No, it's how you expose people faster. If I come with that energy and you cannot respect it, match it, then I know you don't belong here. But if I hold back, I give you a free pass to hold back.
Because I find that the science shows that you're experiencing dopamine and cortisol at the same time. So you're experiencing the reward chemical and stress chemical at the same time, which gives you that chemistry feeling, which is the feeling of butterflies in your stomach or like, do they like me? Are they into me? That kind of feeling. But then you're talking about a deeper connection. How do you hear the difference? Because I think a lot of us just get swept up in the feeling of, oh, I'm so into that person, they're so into me. How do you know?
So I think one is, are you even being yourself, or can you be yourself with this individual? If you're presenting your representative, then this is not a real connection. This is them falling for that person that you're presenting, but that's not real. So to me, you should be already being yourself, but with that person you have a connection with, it's a more natural flow. We don't have to force it. We just feel so much more comfortable around them. I think in addition to that is when you find yourself all caught up in the moment and caught up in that chemistry, again, you have to ask yourself, what am I really attaching myself to? What do I really like about this individual? What I find is that when it's really about chemistry, we're still on the surface. You don't really know about them yet. You just know you guys had a good time. Maybe you had fun at this event. You guys were able to talk about a lot of different things, which is great, which is going to also be important if there is a connection. Mm-hmm.
And if you can't grow together, chances are you need to grow apart in order to see whether you grow together again or grow for someone else. And all of those options are okay, but we put so much pressure on people to grow together that they grow apart.
Yeah.
And actually, if they chose to grow apart and grow separately, they could come back together if they learn the lessons. And I think that's a mistake too, that sometimes people think, I'm going to go learn this lesson for this person. Yeah. I meet a lot of people, they're like, okay, they broke up with me because I wasn't XYZ. Now I'm going to go become XYZ to win them back.
Yeah.
And I always find I'm just like, well, no, you should go become XYZ if you think you were missing XYZ. But not to win them back because you don't know what they're going to do. What's your take on people trying to win people back?
So I 100% agree with you. Like, if we're trying to learn or grow, it needs to be for the benefit of who we are and just whoever we deal with. So it's almost like if I was a bad communicator in this relationship, I shouldn't learn to better communicate for that person. I need to better communicate for whoever I'm going to be with. If you can't see it in that light, then maybe you're looking at the wrong thing. My thing is this: I think it all depends on what the details of the situation was, what led to the breakup, what were you overlooking. So if it's not born out of a true connection, love, a genuine desire, you really like this individual, of course, there's always things we have to work through. But is the foundation strong enough for us to say, okay, we can make something special here? And I think once we are honest with ourselves, that kind of helps answer the question, because sometimes we get so caught up trying to analyze the other individual that it's like we get in our heads and now we're missing the mark on what's really important here. And we can't always say for sure what's going on with them. I will say that in general, if this person isn't willing to talk about things, they're wasting your time. If they're not willing to address or correct things that have been talked about, they're wasting your time. If you guys aren't on the same page about what you want and where you want to go in life, wasting time. So there are some things I think we can just look at and say, listen, this is pointless here. But a lot of times, and I have to say this, especially for women, women's intuition is extremely powerful. I'm a huge believer in it. And I feel like women know very early, this isn't it. But they rationalize reasons to convince themselves to give this man a chance. And this, again, is a waste of time because it just doesn't work. I've seen people turn what should have been maybe a couple weeks of dating into years of being married to someone they were not happy with.
Are they into me? What should I wear? That kind of feeling. But then you're talking about a deeper connection. How do you hear the difference? Because I think a lot of us just get swept up in the feeling of, oh, I'm so into that person, they're so into me. How do you know?
So I think one is, are you even being yourself, or can you be yourself with this individual? If you're presenting your representative, then this is not a real connection. This is them falling for that person that you're presenting, but that's not real. So to me, you should be already being yourself, but with that person you have a connection with, it's a more natural flow. We don't have to force it. We just feel so much more comfortable around them. I think in addition to that is when you find yourself all caught up in the moment and caught up in that chemistry, again, you have to ask yourself, what am I really attaching myself to? What do I really like about this individual? What I find is that when it's really about chemistry, we're still on the surface. You don't really know about them yet. You just know you guys had a good time. Maybe you had fun at this event. You guys were able to talk about a lot of different things, which is great, which is going to also be important if there is a connection. However, do you even know what kind of relationship they want? Do you know what kind of life they want to live? Are you guys really on the same page? I think connection is our paths align, our purposes align. We have to learn that, listen, like to me, I feel if your partner thinks you're never going to walk away from them, no matter what they do, you've lost. That's a horrible place to be in. We have to get to a place where we both understand that as long as we show up the way that we need to show up for each other, we have each other's back. We will be here. But neither of us will tolerate an unhealthy relationship and someone who blatantly does not want to work on making this better. I would want the woman I'm with to feel that way, and I need to feel that way. Once we understand that, and you have the confidence of, I can walk away if I have to, that shifts your energy right there in itself. And now you don't find yourself falling into that place where, again, you start to look a lot more unattractive, or for some men, they become yes men in their relationships, thinking that makes her happy. That's turning her off. She doesn't want you to be her yes man. She wants you to stand up for yourself sometimes. Give your opinion, give your perspective. She wants to be able to, if anything, be able to have discussions with you about these things. Not just you say, whatever you want, whatever you want, whatever you want. Over time, it becomes a problem. So I think that once we conquer that fear, once we create a space where we can talk about these moments and not feel some kind of way, I think sometimes men they struggle with taking the criticism from their partner. Men and women. We all do when we have actual feelings for someone. We don't care about you, it's not as big of a deal. But we're emotionally invested, we're more sensitive to it. But we have to understand that these criticisms are for the sake of making things better and strengthening this relationship.